Welcome to a very short video exploring how to use a damp meter as part of our assessments for the community buildings. This is the damp meter that I use. It's a very basic tool that just measures electrical resistance between the two sort of prongs on top. This one's got a couple of settings, one for masonry and one for wood. So just, if it's water similar, make sure it's on the masonry setting. And the way I go about it basically is to sort of pick an internal wall, which I know to be dry, and then to sort of get a background sort of reading for the building really. So on here, looking around about sort of 2%-ish, which is very dry in fact, for this particular building. And that gives you an idea as to, as a baseline. So anything that sort of varies, wildly from that is you start to sort of question and start to investigate, why may that be damp. So once you've got your baseline, you can then start to do some investigations. That's going to be guided by a couple of things. The external condition, certainly sort of southwest sort of facing walls are going to be more prone to penetrating damp. So you're looking for issues on the outside, sort of, failed seals around windows, staining from guttering leaks, cracked renders, things like that. And then you can test to see whether the damp has actually managed to make it through the wall, and into the building on the inside. So there's a couple of things there. We'll obviously be recording that as an external issue, but is there an internal issue? Because if the water's come all the way through to the inside, then obviously that wall's got to dry out before we do anything else to it. So with these meters, because they're just measuring electrical resistance, there's a couple of things you have to be aware of, because other things, conduct electricity better as well as water, and they are things like salts, and also carbon, which you can get in old mortars. And also, so if you get an area that's been, say, dry lined, they may have been insulated using some foil-backed insulation. And obviously, if you put the damp meter into a wall that's got metal in it, then the figures are going to be sort of out of this world really. And so there's that. We're also sort of primarily looking for sort of visible areas of dampness, and that could be either mold, and black mold especially is associated with condensation, but also if you've got an area where it's got penetrating damp, then those areas tend to be a bit colder. The wall will be colder, which means that you get condensation forming on that, so like a double whammy sort of type thing really. So you're looking for molds, you're looking for sort of peeling paint, and then you can sort of test those areas to see if they're wet. Mostly it's going to be down to penetrating damp, maybe condensation as well, and potentially even leaks from either boilers or showers or whatever. But people in the community centres will generally know about those sort of types of leaks that have happened, because they've obviously had to go through a repair job. So in our house, I know that where we've had replacement concrete floors, that's caused internal problems and with the walls and damp. So here you've got an example here of sort of paint flaking off the wall, and if I put the meter in there, you can see it's damp. So that's quite easy to sort of diagnose in a way. Don't get confused with certainly sort of this idea of rising damp. And higher readings down the bottom of ground floor walls. So for example, this house is pretty dry actually, because of we've got the right renders and things on it. But this is our north facing wall, so this is going to be the coldest wall. As we go down the wall, so we're looking about a metre and a half up there. As we go down, it starts to sort of increase a little bit. And that's generally just because it's colder down there, so you just get a little bit more condensation. So it's not actually a problem of rising damp, it's just the natural way of things really. So as well as sort of testing areas where you see either external problems or internal problems, it's also really key, especially in this sort of time of where it's been really hot for the last few weeks, is a few other sort of key areas, and one of those is around windows. Now on the ground floor, you can go around and you can generally inspect a window to sort of see whether it's in good condition and whether there's any cracks or areas where rain can get in, especially, as I said, on those southwest facing sort of types of walls. But when you get on the first floor, second floor, etc., you can't really do that. So every window in a property, or at least the most prone ones, is worthwhile just sort of doing a quick test. So here, for example, just there's nothing there, which is good. You can just sort of test, in those sorts of areas, just to see whether there's any damp there. And thankfully there's not in this one. But those are the areas where you tend to get more damp coming in, because anything that hits a window, any rain that hits that window, is going to end up at the bottom. And if there's any faults with that seal along the bottom, then obviously water can get in. And it's only really those properties that sort of are post 2000 or so, where they've actually got cavity wall closers, where you've actually got a true cavity around the whole property. So anything, prior to 2000, really, all the doors and windows, all those openings, will be effectively areas of solid wall. So of course, if it gets wet on the outside, then it can make its way across into the inside. So it's just really important just to sort of have a good overview of the property first, see where there's some potential issues, test those when you go inside, and also just sort of take a background reading, and then just sort of take some informed readings around things like doors and windows, especially windows, as you go up the floors. So that's a very brief and introduction to damp meters and how to use them, and I hope you find that useful. Cheers.